what is it? It's Friday now. This is my personal third week of doing this. Yeah, third full week. So I'd say I started isolating around 15th. That was really the first time I mean, yeah, yeah, I'd say, you know what, be fair, so say like before the 16th, like 2 days before so like the 14th is really, of March when I started socially isolating. But it's really, really tough. So, yeah, nothing has changed. This is from the New York Times here. Nothing has changed Adara Benjamin's responsibilities. She gets on a bus nearly every morning in Chicago, traveling 20 miles round trip some days to cook, clean, and shop for her clients who are older and have health problems that makes such tasks difficult. She knows the dangers, but she needs her job, which pays her $13 an hour. She cannot imagine leaving her clients to fend for themselves, saying, quote, "They become my family." In cities across America, many low-income workers are continuing to move around, while those who make more money are staying home and limiting their exposure to the coronavirus. So, yeah, you could see all the people like taking less and less time on the metro, not many people doing all that stuff, drastic declines, but the wealthiest people, those in the top 10% of income, however, have limited their movement more than those in the bottom 10% of the same metro areas, according to Times analysis of cell phone location data. By March 16th, when President Trump asked people to stay home to slow the spread of the virus, those in the wealthiest and poorest areas were both moving less than usual. But by that date, those in the highest income locations already cut their movement by nearly half. Poor areas did not see a similar drop until 3 days later, and that's a big difference. Like, there are pictures out there of the subway trains filled with people, like at like 6 p.m. that are all clearly coming home from like day jobs that they have to do because they're all essential work and they're all getting paid the least out of everybody out there. So, like, that is something that's very, like, these are the people that their jobs, their presence really keeps our country running, and that's why it's so important. Like, these are the people that not the fancy jobs, not the jobs where you can stay at home and make a lot of money, but the jobs that really keep this country functioning. I think it's so important to remember, especially when it comes time for them to ask better conditions, when maybe their union contract is up and they actually want to get a little bit more. Like, and I think they would deserve it. I think they really do deserve it. Call me crazy, and I hope anyway that the American people will support them, because this is just really, really disturbing stuff. And when you do get sick, I mean, there is the problem of healthcare, and given everything that's happened right now, it's still hard to believe there is still a presidential campaign going on, but there is, and it's because everyone's locked inside and there's no campaigning and no rallies, it's now operating almost entirely on Twitter. On Tuesdays, Twitter's main character, at least for the liberal political commentators and consultants, was Briahna Joy Gray, Bernie Sanders' campaign press secretary and a former writer for The Intercept and Current Affairs, both wonderful publications. Since the coronavirus hit America, the Sanders campaign and its supporters have been hammering the point that Medicare for All could be the cure for millions of people losing their health insurance when they get fired in a pandemic-fueled recession and are facing the cost of testing and treatment, as many working and middle-class people have, as we saw from the record number of unemployment, the vertical line on the graphs. But it's really crazy to see that, like, just the abject resistance that people have to this. It's really, really crazy. So, you could also fill empty space where federal coordination is supposed to be, which has left many states and FEMA trying to outbid each other on ventilators and healthcare workers begging for masks. Like, they're all trying to get the same ventilators at the same time here, people. It's not that complicated. They just want to get the ventilators out to everybody. Like, they just want to have that symbiotic, like, relationship. And they're still trying to, states are competing with FEMA, the federal government, to try and get the ventilators. Like, it's insane. Healthcare workers are begging for masks, you've seen all the stories. But the Democratic frontrunner and probable nominee Joe Biden continues to pretend that Medicare for All advocates are arguing for a single-payer system that could stop the virus itself, and thus continues to oppose Medicare for All in favor of his own plan, which, by the campaign's own admission, will leave 10 million people uninsured. But very quickly for Biden and others, the mainstream Democratic line has quickly become that no one should have to pay for testing or treatment for coronavirus. Medicare for all who have this one illness, pretty much, is what it is. So, Senator Kamala Harris, she was the former presidential candidate for, and now a Biden surrogate. She co-sponsored Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan, and then offered her own plan, which was called Medicare for All, which fell flat for just about everyone. For one reason or another, because it isn't Medicare for All. You can't just, Medicare for All, this is something that I know, it really, really annoyed me during the presidential campaign. You can't just write your own healthcare plan, that has nothing related to the Medicare for All plan that already exists, and then just call it Medicare for All. Like, it's not how it works. Like, I cannot build a, I can't build a whatever version of a dumpy car is, I'm gonna build a Toyota Prius and call it a Ferrari. That does not work. You can't repackage something that's crappy under a good name. People are gonna see through that, and you're gonna get called out on that, and you're probably gonna complain of Bernie bro harassment when you do. On Monday night, Harris once again reiterated the point that coronavirus testing and treatment should be free. It should. And so should everything else. How about that? And that's what Brianna Greyjoy said in a quote tweet, responding and asking why cancer patients and diabetes patients shouldn't be afforded the same protection. Here comes the storm. Send off the alarm. Brianna Greyjoy is being mean. Why? Because, ostensibly at least, Kamala's mother died of cancer. Bakari Sellers, a former South Carolina state legislator who lost his only statewide office run by 17 points and then became a political commentator, called Gray toxic on Tuesday morning and later replied that she had been blacklisted from working on campaigns in the future. What? No, that can't be how Washington works. Again, this is Sir Michael Singleton, a former Trump guy, I think, saying, quote, "We've both been in politics," in the response to Bakari Sellers. Check out this quote. "We've both been in politics long enough to know that this person," referring to Brianna Joy Gray, is putting herself in a very bad position for future opportunities. I hope she knows that what she's doing, because making unnecessary enemies is a fool's errand." And Bakari Sellers says, "We remember." Can you believe that? That is the sellout, the nature of the careerist nature of these guys that's really showing up on such an incredible degree, is it's really hard to ignore. And they're they're like, call the banners, you will never work again. They're going on full fight mode for this, which is insane. It's really a really benign tweet. Just the fact that it can be shaped out, it's really, really insane. So the outrage is backed up by prominent Democrats in the media, campaign staffers, political dweebs, and pundits alike. The verdicts range from "this is why Bernie Sanders is losing" to, quote, "you'll never work in this town again," because he's going to be skeptical of the press secretary's tweets is why Bernie Sanders is losing, considering the Biden team now includes someone who did literally pro bono PR work for Harvey Weinstein, and then also rewarded the black voters who overwhelmingly supported him by welcoming Michael Stop and Frisk Bloomberg to the team. So, a lot of really obnoxious people have said stuff like this. For example, Amar Musa, who is currently the press secretary for John Hickenlooper, who's currently managing to lose his supposedly layup Colorado Senate campaign to an insurgent progressive. Shout out to Andrew Romanoff. He says, Brianna is remarkably good at giving people lessons on how not to do comms. Okay. Yeah, she's actually giving lessons on really, if not knowing how to do comms is having principles, I think she's pretty good at that. Shout out to Brianna Joy Gray for the millionth time here. That's, one of the best out there. Yeah, without a doubt. So, what people who have made a career out of being cited by Axios as quote sources being familiar with his thinking take as carelessness is exactly what most of the diehard Sanders supporters and people disillusioned with the system in the general appreciate about people like Gray or someone like David Sirota. They don't seem to operate with one eye on the next job, or if they do, they are pretty bad at it because they have principles, they care about stuff, and they want to see a better world. And that's why this Bernie Sanders staff, they all came out and with tweets and support for Briahna Joy Gray, and it really showed. Like, they stuck together, and because they care a lot more about having Bernie Sanders win, and I think B, and probably more prominently than just having Bernie Sanders win, getting those policies across. It's so huge and so important to everybody associated with Sanders 2020. Lost in all the concern showing of Gray's future career trajectory, though, is that her real crime was putting in plain words what the consequences of not making testing and treatment free for illnesses beyond the coronavirus are. The answer to Gray's question from Harris and the people who support her because of her policies given her own prior support for Medicare for All should be a resounding no. It's not okay to die from cancer and diabetes if you're poor. The problem is what comes after. An admission that the only way to ensure that doesn't happen is to have a healthcare system that looks decidedly more like Bernie Sanders' vision than Joe Biden. So that is that unspoken admission there, and it's something you cannot be allowed to say, especially to a queen, like the super popular, 7th place finisher Kamala Harris in this presidential primary, who lost her own state. Yeah, this is not some abstract policy debate. It's not. Well, we can agree to disagree on the issue of healthcare, especially with healthcare. It is more than anything all or nothing. We live in a country where making the choice to stay alive, if you're lucky enough to be able to make that choice, routinely drives people into bankruptcy and sometimes the decision not to live anymore, even on its own. A lot of liberals and Democrats in general seem to think that this out is a cudgel, which takes a simple disagreement out of bounds. Just saying that, just the idea of like possibly hinting that this is a deeply moral fight, the Democrats are like, oh no, that's unacceptable. Reasonable people can agree to disagree, but no, people are dying here. That is the stakes, and that's the stake the Sanders people see. So if you ever wonder why Bernie Sanders and his supporters and his associates are so passionate about the issues, because I think they understand it. I think I understand pretty well that this is a campaign. It's not just a campaign. It's about fighting for issues that literally kill or save people's lives. Like that's really what it's all about. So yeah, the truth of this reality and healthcare in this country should really make everybody uncomfortable. On top of this, horrible personal experiences that most of us have with the healthcare system. And all that comes with it, we're supposed to just accept that there's a baseline of people who needlessly die every year because the politics are too hard to fix it and try to make things better. Like 45,000 people die every year because they don't have access to health insurance. Like, really? Why? Why does it need to be this way? Because the politics are too hard. That's really what it seems like. And the pushing against the powerful is too hard because these people, Democrat and Republican, are too entrenched. One other thing that this conversation illustrates is just how unwilling many in the Democratic Party are actually. They're just not willing to engage in the healthcare conversation again for the third time in 25 years. The lesson these Democrats seem to have taken from Hillary Care and Obamacare fights is that it's a waste of political capital with no thanks at the other end. Just a decade of Republican dominance and state and court level rejections of all the pieces that were supposed to support the system, both the good and the bad, like the Medicaid expansion and the individual mandate. So telling these Democrats what happens when people don't have health insurance generally doesn't have the same effect as showing the reality of the system. Say gun violence, the attitude seems to be like, we tried that already and we don't want to keep going with that. It's just too much work and gets us into too much trouble, and we hate it. That's really what it seems to be like. Joe Biden is the avatar for that kind of Democrat. By all available accounts, he was not a supporter of Hillary Care and an early opponent of Barack Obama spending all of his political capital on health care. Biden spent the bulk of his career in the Senate looking for areas of agreement with the Republican Party, and boy, did he find a lot of them. Believe me, that was no tough task for that guy, trust me. But yeah, It's really as much flack as Sanders gets for not being a registered Democrat and his divisiveness, such as exposing cracks in the Democratic coalition. His